What was my school really feeding the girls at the breakfast program? Mr. Kumar's breakfast drive was all anyone could talk about in 5th grade. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., these yellow district vans would pull up with full hot breakfast, eggs, pancakes, fresh fruit, juice. Everyone loved him for it, except for me, because my twin sister Olivia qualified, and I didn't. When I brought this up at dinner, Olivia got weird about it. It's only for special girls from certain neighborhoods. Special? We live in the same house. What makes you special? She wouldn't look at me. Mr. Kumar says I'm special. My parents thought this was hilarious. Olivia gets free breakfast and you're complaining? My mom laughed. Just be happy for your sister. Happy? She was getting restaurant quality breakfast while I got off-brand ghetto Cheerios. I tried asking Principal Franklin about joining. I stood in her office pointing at the zip code list. Olivia and I have the same address. Why does she get free food and I don't? She barely looked up. Mr. Kumar personally selects girls who need nutritional support. He's very particular about who can handle the program. Then she added something weird. Your sister is lucky Mr. Kumar thinks she's mature enough. Mature enough to eat breakfast? The breakfast girls acted like they were in some secret club. Olivia would come home different, not just full, but drowsy. Her eyes would be glassy for hours. Mr. Kumar says I did so good today. I finished everything, even the protein shake. Protein shake? It's pink, like the pink drink from Starbucks but thicker. Says it has nutrients growing girls need. She rubbed her stomach. It low-key gives me the shits, but he says that means it's working. Plus the food we get is bust down. Olivia's friend Destiny was constantly bragging. Mr. Kumar says I'm his best breakfast eater. I can finish the entire Thursday special without complaining. What's the Thursday special? Someone asked. Different menu, extra supplements, bigger drinks. She lowered her voice. Sometimes the pink drink makes me so relaxed I can barely stay awake. But Mr. Kumar says that's good, and I trust him. I tried rallying other parents. Don't you think it's weird that only certain girls? Mr. Kumar is helping at risk young women get proper nutrition. This mom snapped. Your privilege is showing. By October, Olivia had changed. She'd stopped eating dinner. Still full from breakfast, she'd say, but she looked thinner. My parents exchanged a look, but then my mom just said, hey, I'm not going to be the one to complain about having one less mouth to feed. Mrs. Freeman, the counselor, was even worse. When I complained again, she sighed. Mr. Kumar makes specialized nutrition plans. He even prepares special recipes at home and brings them in. He's invested thousands of his own money in supplements and ingredients. Why would a teacher spend thousands on breakfast food? Because he cares. Unlike you, who just wants free pancakes. Even I couldn't argue with that one. Olivia quit soccer in November. When I asked why, she whispered, I'm always too tired after eating the breakfast. And my stomach. Mr. Kumar says some girls are sensitive to the supplements, but we need them. Plus, they taste super good. What supplements? Mr. Kumar says people wouldn't understand. They'd think it's weird, like you already do. I got my cousin to send a furious email to the school board listing everything. The secret ingredients, the protein shakes, how unfair the whole system was. The response was instant. Mr. Kumar's nutrition program has shown remarkable results. Stop undermining your sister's opportunity. My parents grounded me. You're traumatizing Olivia with this jealousy over free food. The next morning, right before Olivia left for school, there was a knock on the door. 2 federal agents and a district woman were standing there. We need to discuss your complaints about the breakfast program. Finally, the selection is completely unfair. Only certain girls get chosen and tell us exactly what the girls said about the food, the pink drinks, the supplements, the vitamins he watches them swallow. I found it weird that they were taking it so seriously, but I told them anyway. The next day, Mr. Kumar was arrested at 5:30 a.m., right when he'd normally be preparing his special recipes. I thought it was about food safety violations, maybe expired supplements or something. But then Olivia came to my room that night, looking so small I wanted to cry. The investigators asked about the pink drinks. What about them? They weren't vitamins. The lab found stuff that makes you sleepy, makes you forget. Her voice broke. The Thursday sessions. I can't remember what happened, but my body always hurt. My whole body went cold. I was complaining about not getting free pancakes while my sister was being dragged. But before I could respond, Olivia ran out of the room towards the bathroom. I held her hair back as she vomited. My stomach really hurts, Kevin. My name. I recognized the way she clutched her stomach, the way she held her lower back. My 11-year-old sister was pregnant. I stood there in the bathroom doorway, my hand still on Olivia's back, and everything suddenly made horrible sense. The Thursday sessions, the pink drinks that made her sleepy, the way she couldn't remember things. Mr. Kumar had been doing this to her for months, while I complained about stupid pancakes. Olivia threw up again, harder this time, and I heard her crying between the heaving sounds. Her whole body shook as she clutched the toilet bowl. When she finally stopped, she looked up at me with tears running down her face and whispered that her stomach really hurt, like a different kind of hurt than just being sick. I grabbed a towel and wet it with cold water, then helped her stand up. Her legs were shaking, so bad I had to hold most of her weight as we walked to her room. I sat her down on her bed, and she immediately curled up on her side, pulling her knees to her chest. She was shaking like she was freezing even though the house was warm. I sat next to her and she grabbed my arm with both hands. Her teeth were chattering when she told me she was scared and that her stomach had been hurting like this for weeks now, not just tonight. I told her we needed to tell Mom and Dad right now, that she needed to see a doctor. She squeezed my arm harder and begged me not to tell them. She said they would be so mad at her for getting pregnant. I promised her I would stay right there with her the whole time and that none of this was her fault. She kept crying and saying she didn't want to go downstairs, but I told her we had to, that she needed help. We walked down the stairs together, me holding her elbow because she was still shaking. Mom and Dad were on the couch watching some cooking show. They looked up when we came in, and Mom smiled at first, then her face changed when she saw Olivia crying. I opened my mouth to say it, but the words came out all wrong and jumbled. I said something like, "Olivia is really sick, and we think maybe she might be pregnant." Mom's face went completely white, like all the blood just drained out of it. Dad stared at us like we were speaking another language or like he couldn't understand what the words meant. The TV kept playing in the background, some chef talking about making pasta. Mom stood up fast and started asking questions all at once. Who did this? When did it happen? How is this possible? Are you sure? What are you talking about? Dad just sat there frozen on the couch, not moving at all. Olivia started crying harder, and she could barely get the words out. She tried to explain about Mr. Kumar and the breakfast program and the pink drinks that made her so sleepy she couldn't remember things. I watched my parents' faces change as they started to understand what actually happened. Mom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Dad's hands were gripping the couch cushions so hard his knuckles turned white. Olivia was sobbing now, saying she was sorry over and over. Mom finally moved and pulled Olivia into a hug, asking her what was in the pink drinks. Olivia said she didn't know, but they made everything fuzzy, and she would wake up feeling sore and confused. Dad stood up suddenly and grabbed his phone off the coffee table. His hands were shaking as he dialed 911. I could hear the operator's voice asking what the emergency was. Dad's voice cracked when he said his 11-year-old daughter was sexually assaulted and might be pregnant. Mom had wrapped Olivia in the blanket from the couch and was rocking her back and forth. She kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," over and over like she could make it better by apologizing. Olivia just cried into Mom's shoulder. Dad was still on the phone, giving our address, answering questions about what happened. He kept saying he didn't know all the details yet, that we just found out. The operator told him to stay on the line, and that an ambulance was coming. The ambulance got there in less than 10 minutes. 2 paramedics came in, a man and a woman, and they were so gentle with Olivia. They asked her questions in really soft voices about how she was feeling and if anything hurt. The male paramedic pulled Mom and Dad aside and I heard him say words like forensic examination and evidence collection and police report. Mom started crying again. The female paramedic was checking Olivia's pulse and asking her more questions. They got a stretcher from the ambulance and helped Olivia onto it. She reached out and grabbed my hand as they were getting ready to wheel her out. She asked if I could come with her in the ambulance. I looked at Mom and she nodded, so I climbed in and sat on the little bench seat while they loaded Olivia in and hooked up some monitors. The hospital was only about 15 minutes away. They took us straight to a special area in the pediatric wing. Everything was painted with cartoon characters and bright colors that felt completely wrong for what was happening. A nurse came in and explained that they needed to do an examination and collect evidence. She asked Olivia if she wanted Mom or me in the room with her during the exam. Olivia looked at both of us and then said she wanted Mom. The nurse said that was fine and led them to an exam room. I went back out to the waiting area where Dad was sitting. He looked like he had aged about 10 years in the past hour. His face was gray, and he was just staring at the wall. I sat down next to him, and we didn't say anything. A man in a suit walked into the waiting area about 20 minutes later and came straight over to us. He introduced himself as Detective Rossi and said he was part of the investigation into Mr. Kumar. He sat down across from us and explained that the federal agents had arrested Mr. Kumar this morning based on reports about drugging students, but now this was a much bigger case. He looked at me and asked if I was the brother who filed all those complaints with the school board. I nodded, and he said those complaints were now really important evidence of an institutional cover-up. He pulled out a notebook and asked me to tell him everything I saw over the past few months. I told him about Olivia losing weight and being exhausted all the time. I told him how she quit soccer and how she talked about Mr. Kumar like he was so special and how everyone said I was just jealous. I told him about the pink drinks and the Thursday sessions and how she would come home looking drowsy and confused. Detective Rossi wrote everything down in his notebook. When I finished, he told me I did the right thing by speaking up, even when adults wouldn't listen to me. He said my complaints created a paper trail that would help them build their case. It didn't make me feel any better because I was complaining about pancakes and fairness while my sister was raped. 3 hours later, Mom came out of the examination room. She looked destroyed, like someone had taken everything good out of her and left just the sad parts. She told us that Olivia was definitely pregnant, probably about 8 to 10 weeks based on what the doctor said. The doctor wanted to do an ultrasound and more tests tomorrow. They were keeping Olivia overnight because she was dehydrated and hadn't been eating enough. Dad made a sound like someone had punched him in the stomach and put his head in his hands. They let us see Olivia about an hour later. A nurse walked us down a hallway with cartoon animals painted on the walls and brought us to a room with a bed that had rails on the sides. Olivia was sitting up in a hospital gown that was way too big for her, and she looked so small it made my chest hurt. Her eyes were red from crying, and she had this bracelet on her wrist with her name and birthday printed on it. When she saw us come in, she started crying again, and Mom rushed over to hug her. Dad and I stood near the door because there wasn't much room. Olivia looked at me over Mom's shoulder and asked if I was mad at her for not telling me sooner about what was happening. I walked over to the bed and sat down on the edge next to her feet. I told her that none of this was her fault, that Mr. Kumar was the one who did something wrong, not her. She kept crying and said she couldn't remember most of what happened during the Thursday sessions, just waking up feeling sore and confused, and Mr. Kumar telling her she did a good job. She said sometimes she would wake up in the nurse's office with her clothes feeling wrong and her body hurting. The nurse came in after a few minutes and said we needed to let Olivia rest, so we all hugged her and told her we'd be back tomorrow. On the drive home, nobody said anything. Dad kept his hands tight on the steering wheel, and Mom stared out the window. When we got home, I went straight to my room and tried to do homework, but I couldn't focus on anything. Around 9 that night, I heard voices getting loud downstairs. I was supposed to be in bed, but I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. Dad was yelling about, how could they not see this? How could the school let this happen? Why didn't they believe me when I kept saying something was wrong with the breakfast program? Mom was crying and saying she thought I was just being jealous about the food, that she failed Olivia by not taking my concerns seriously. Dad's voice got even louder, and he said that everyone failed her. The school, the parents, the district, everyone who was supposed to protect her. Mom said she couldn't stop thinking about all the times Olivia came home tired and sick, and they just laughed it off. Their guilt was so loud it filled the whole house, and I couldn't stand listening anymore, so I went back to my room and put my headphones on. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, there was a knock on our door, right when we were eating breakfast. Dad answered it, and this man in a suit showed himself in with a badge. He said his name was Fletcher Burks, and he was with the FBI working on the investigation into Mr. Kumar and the breakfast program. He asked if he could come in and talk to all of us separately, and Dad led him into the living room. Fletcher sat down on our couch and pulled out a notebook and his phone. He told my parents that they had identified at least 12 other girls from the breakfast program who were being examined at hospitals right now, and that Mr. Kumar had been running this operation for at least 2 years, based on what they found. He said some of the girls were showing signs of long-term drugging and abuse. Mom put her hand over her mouth and started crying again. Dad asked how this could have gone on for 2 years without anyone stopping it. Fletcher said that's exactly what they were trying to figure out, and that's why he needed to talk to each of us about what we saw and reported. He talked to Mom first, then Dad, then it was my turn. I sat down on the couch, and Fletcher asked me to describe every conversation I had with school officials about the breakfast program. I told him about going to Principal Franklin's office, and her saying that Mr. Kumar personally selected girls who were mature enough. I told him about the counselor Mrs. Freeman saying that Mr. Kumar spent thousands of his own money on special supplements. I told him about the email my cousin sent to the school board, and how they responded by saying to stop undermining Olivia's opportunity. Fletcher was recording everything on his phone and writing notes in his notebook. When I finished, he looked up at me and said that my complaints to Principal Franklin, the counselor, and the school board created a paper trail showing that multiple adults were warned about concerning behavior and did nothing. He said this evidence would be crucial for charging not just Mr. Kumar, but potentially school administrators for negligence and failure to report suspected abuse. He told me that my annoying complaints might actually help put these people in jail for ignoring the warnings. I didn't know what to say to that. The next day, we went back to the hospital for Olivia's ultrasound and more tests. We had to go to a different part of the hospital where they do women's health stuff. The doctor who came in was really nice and talked to Olivia in a gentle voice, explaining what they needed to check and what her options would be. She said they needed to see how far along the pregnancy was and make sure Olivia was healthy enough for whatever decision she made. Olivia was holding Mom's hand so tight, her knuckles turned white. The doctor put this gel on Olivia's stomach and moved a wand thing around while looking at a screen. After a few minutes, she said, Olivia was about 9 weeks pregnant based on the measurements. Then Olivia asked in this tiny voice if she had to have a baby at 11 years old. The doctor looked right at her and said absolutely not, that they would discuss all her medical options once they had complete test results, and that Olivia got to choose what happened to her own body. After the appointment, we went back out to the waiting room to get our stuff. That's when I saw Destiny's mom sitting in one of the chairs looking just as bad as my parents did. She had dark circles under her eyes, and she looked like she'd been crying for days. Mom recognized her from the school events and went over to talk to her. Destiny's mom told us that Destiny was also pregnant, and so was another girl named Sophia from the breakfast program. She said 3 11-year-old girls pregnant by the same teacher, and the number might go up as more victims got examined. She started crying and apologizing to my mom, saying she also thought her daughter was just getting free breakfast and she should have known something was wrong. Mom hugged her and they both cried together in the waiting room while other people stared at us. That evening, Detective Rossi called my dad's cell phone with an update. Dad put it on speaker so we could all hear. The detective said they had searched Mr. Kumar's home earlier that day and found detailed records of which girls received which supplements on which days. He said there were notebooks with schedules written out, photographs of the girls that made Dad turn off the speakerphone real quick, and bottles of prescription sedatives that Mr. Kumar was apparently crushing up and putting into the pink drinks. Detective Rossi said the evidence was overwhelming and horrifying in how organized it all was. He said Mr. Kumar had been planning and documenting everything he did to these girls. The next afternoon, this woman named Rachel McGrath came to our house. She said she was a victim advocate assigned to Olivia's case, and her job was to help Olivia deal with the medical, legal, and emotional stuff that was coming. She looked young, maybe in her 20s, and she was really warm and friendly. She brought a bag with her that had coloring books and these squishy stress toys in it. At first, I thought it was kind of silly to bring coloring books for an 11-year-old, but then I saw Olivia actually using them while they talked, and it seemed to help her stay calm. Rachel sat on the floor with Olivia and explained that Olivia got to make choices about her own body and her recovery, and that adults would support her, but not force her into anything she didn't want to do. Olivia asked a lot of questions about what would happen next, and Rachel answered all of them in simple words that made sense. The school district put out a statement the next day saying that Mr. Kumar had been terminated, and they were cooperating fully with law enforcement. That same day, their attorney Cole Byers showed up at our house with a stack of papers for my parents to sign. He was wearing an expensive suit and carrying a briefcase. Dad opened the door, and as soon as Cole started talking about the district's position, Dad completely lost it on him. He started yelling about how the district were ignored warnings and enabled a predator to hurt kids for 2 years. He said they had blood on their hands, and no amount of paperwork would fix that. Cole just stood there on our porch taking it, not arguing back or defending himself. When Dad finally stopped yelling, Cole said quietly that the district would cover all medical and counseling costs for Olivia. It felt like hush money, like they were trying to buy our silence, but we needed the help, so Dad took the papers inside to read them. A few days later, Olivia had her first session with a therapist named Nicholas Waters, who works with kids who've been abused. The appointment was at this medical building downtown. Mom and I sat in the waiting room for over an hour, while Olivia talked to Nicholas in his office. There were magazines on the table, but I couldn't focus on reading anything. When Olivia finally came out, she looked completely exhausted, but also a little bit lighter somehow, like talking about it had let some of the pressure out. Nicholas came out with her and asked to speak to my parents. He explained that Olivia's recovery was going to be a long process, that the drugging and memory loss added extra complexity to her trauma, and that our whole family would need support to get through this. He said he wanted to see Olivia twice a week at first, and he recommended family therapy for all of us too. Mom asked if Olivia would be okay, and Nicholas said that with time and support, yes, but it wouldn't be easy or quick. That night I couldn't sleep, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw Olivia's face when she was bragging about the breakfast program. I finally fell asleep around midnight, but then the nightmare started. In the dream, I was standing in our kitchen yelling at Olivia about how unfair it was that she got special treatment and free pancakes while I had to eat cheap cereal. She was sitting at the table looking small and scared, but I just kept yelling louder about how she thought she was so special. Then Mr. Kumar walked up behind her and put his hands on her shoulders and smiled at me, this creepy smile that made my stomach hurt, and I realized he was standing there the whole time I was complaining. I tried to scream at Olivia to run, but no sound came out of my mouth. I woke up sweating and crying, my shirt stuck to my chest. It was 2 a.m. according to my phone. I went downstairs to get water and found Mom sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. She looked up when I came in, and I could tell she'd been crying too. We sat together without turning on the lights, both of us just sitting there with all this guilt we didn't know what to do with. Mom finally said she kept thinking about all the times Olivia tried to tell us something was wrong, and we didn't listen. I told her about my dream, and she started crying again. We stayed there until almost 4 a.m., not really talking, just being sad together in the dark kitchen. The next afternoon, Fletcher came by the house with an update on the investigation. He sat in our living room with his folder of papers and told us the FBI was expanding the case to include the van drivers who transported girls to the early morning sessions. He said they were also looking at the cafeteria workers who helped Mr. Kumar prepare the special food. Some of these adults suspected something was wrong, but they were too scared to speak up against a popular teacher who everyone loved. Fletcher's voice was calm, but I could tell he was angry about it. I sat there thinking about all the adults who could have stopped this, all the people who saw something weird and just looked away. My anger felt huge, like it could burn down the whole world. Fletcher said they were building a case against several school employees for failure to report suspected abuse. He told my parents this was one of the worst cases of institutional failure he'd seen in 20 years with the FBI. 2 days later, we went back to the hospital for more tests and a meeting with Olivia's full medical team. The doctor was a woman with gray hair who talked directly to Olivia, not just to my parents. She confirmed that Olivia was about 9 weeks pregnant based on the ultrasound and blood work. Then she explained Olivia's options in simple words that even I could understand. She said Olivia could continue the pregnancy with full medical support, which would mean having a baby at 11 years old, or she could have a medical abortion, which at this stage would involve taking pills to end the pregnancy. The doctor was really clear that both options were safe and legal, and that this was Olivia's decision to make with our parents' support. She explained what the abortion would be like, how Olivia would take medicine, and then have cramping and bleeding, kind of like a heavy period. Olivia sat there listening with her hands folded in her lap, looking so much younger than 11. When the doctor finished explaining everything, Olivia asked in a tiny voice if she could think about it for a few days. The doctor said, of course, take all the time she needed. Mom reached over and held Olivia's hand. That week, Olivia and I talked more honestly than we ever had before. It was late at night, and I couldn't sleep again, so I knocked on her door. She was awake too, just lying in bed staring at the ceiling. I sat on the floor next to her bed and asked if she wanted to talk about what happened. She was quiet for a long time, and then she started telling me about the Thursday sessions. She said she didn't remember most of them, just little pieces. She remembered feeling dizzy and Mr. Kumar's voice telling her she was special and good and doing such a great job. She remembered waking up in the school nurse's office sometimes with her clothes feeling wrong, like they'd been put back on her body the wrong way. Her stomach and her private parts would hurt, but she couldn't remember why. She said she thought maybe she was sick or going crazy because nothing made sense. Everyone kept saying how lucky she was to be in the breakfast program, how Mr. Kumar was such a good teacher who cared so much. She thought something was wrong with her for not feeling lucky. Olivia started crying while she was talking, and I just sat there listening, not interrupting, letting her get it all out. Then I told Olivia about all my complaints to the school and how I thought she was being stuck up about the breakfast program. I admitted I was jealous and annoyed that she got special treatment. Olivia actually laughed a little bit through her tears and said she remembered me being really annoying about it. She said she was so confused and tired all the time that she couldn't explain what was really happening, and part of her didn't even understand it herself. We both started crying then, sitting in her dark bedroom at midnight. She told me that I saved her by not shutting up about it, even though I was being a brat about pancakes. She said if I hadn't complained so much to everyone, the FBI might not have come when they did. I told her I was sorry it took so long and sorry I didn't understand sooner. We cried together for a while, and then just sat there in the quiet, feeling a little bit less alone. A few days later, Fletcher called with another update. The final count was 15 girls total who were victimized by Mr. Kumar through the breakfast program. 5 of them were pregnant, including Olivia. The news media had gotten hold of the story, and reporters were camping outside our house trying to get interviews. Dad went out and threatened to call the cops if they didn't leave our property. Fletcher arranged for a family liaison to help us manage the media attention and keep our information private, but it was too late to stop the neighborhood from knowing. Everyone knew something terrible had happened at the elementary school. Kids stared at our house when they walked by. Some neighbors brought food and left it on our porch with notes saying they were sorry. Others just avoided us completely, like what happened to Olivia might be contagious. 3 days after that conversation in her bedroom, Olivia told us she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. She asked Mom, Dad, Rachel, and me to all sit together in the living room because she had something to say. Her voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. She said she was 11 years old, and she wanted to play soccer again and not be pregnant from being raped. She said she didn't want to have a baby, she wanted to be a kid. Mom immediately hugged her and told her she was so brave, and they would support whatever she decided. Mom kept saying over and over that it was Olivia's choice, and they loved her. Dad had to leave the room because he was crying too hard to stay. I heard him in the kitchen making these awful sounds like he couldn't breathe. Rachel told Olivia she was proud of her for making a decision about her own body. I just sat there feeling relieved that Olivia got to choose something after having all her choices taken away for so long. The medical team scheduled Olivia's abortion for the following week. Nicholas had a session with her to prepare her for what to expect physically and emotionally. He explained that she might feel sad or relieved or both, and that all her feelings would be okay and normal. Rachel came over and explained the process again in simple terms, showing Olivia pictures of the pills and telling her exactly what would happen. Olivia asked a lot of questions about whether it would hurt and how long it would take. Rachel was honest that there would be cramping and it wouldn't be fun, but the doctors would give her medicine to help with the pain. Olivia looked at me and asked if I would be at the hospital with her. I promised her I would be there the whole time. She seemed scared, but also relieved, like she was finally getting to make a choice after everything that happened. Around the same time, Detective Rossi called with news about Mr. Kumar's case. His lawyer had tried to arrange a plea deal, but the prosecutor's office refused because of the number of victims and how planned out everything was. Rossi said they were charging Mr. Kumar with multiple counts of rape of a child, distribution of controlled substances to minors, and child pornography because they found photos on his computer. The detective's voice got hard when he said that last part. He told us Mr. Kumar was looking at life in prison without the possibility of parole. Dad asked if there was any chance he could get out someday, and Rossi said no. With this many victims and this much evidence, he would die in prison. That made me feel a little bit better, but also worse because it meant what happened to Olivia was real and documented, and would be part of court records forever. 3 days before Olivia's procedure, Destiny's family came over for dinner. The adults sat in the dining room talking in these careful, quiet voices about lawyers and therapy and how to help the girls heal. Destiny and Olivia disappeared into Olivia's room right away. I could hear them talking and sometimes laughing through the door, which seemed weird, but also kind of normal. After dinner, when Destiny's family left, Olivia told me it helped so much to talk to someone who understood exactly what she was going through. She said Destiny was also terminating her pregnancy next month, and they made plans to hang out after their procedures, just being normal kids trying to find normal again. Olivia seemed lighter after that visit, like having a friend who got it made her feel less alone and broken. The night before Olivia's procedure, I woke up to her standing in my doorway at midnight. She looked small in her pajamas, holding her stuffed elephant from when we were little. She asked if we could play video games, and I said yes, without even thinking about it. We went downstairs to the living room and I turned on the TV with the volume super low so we wouldn't wake up Mom and Dad. Olivia picked Mario Kart, and we played for hours, not really talking, just racing and throwing shells at each other like we used to do before everything got bad. She beat me 4 times in a row and actually laughed when I drove off Rainbow Road for the 3rd time. She called me trash at the game, and I told her she was only winning because I was letting her. She rolled her eyes and said I was such a liar. For those few hours, we were just twins again, being annoying and fighting over who got to be Yoshi. We played until almost 3 a.m., and then Olivia fell asleep on the couch with the controller still in her hands. I covered her with a blanket and went back to bed, feeling like maybe things could be okay someday. At the hospital the next morning, Olivia was quiet, but not crying. The nurses were really nice and explained everything they were going to do in words that made sense. One nurse showed Olivia the room where it would happen and let her ask questions about every single thing. Olivia wanted to know if it would hurt a lot and how long she would be asleep. The nurse told her she would feel crampy after, but they would give her medicine to help. Mom went back with Olivia when it was time, and Dad and I sat in the waiting room with these old magazines that nobody actually reads. Dad kept getting up to pace and then sitting back down. Requested Reds is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. I played games on my phone but couldn't focus on any of them. 2 hours felt like forever, but finally a nurse came out and said Olivia was in recovery and everything went fine. They took us back to see her, and she was awake but groggy, lying in this bed with warm blankets piled on top of her. The doctor came in and told us the procedure went smoothly, and Olivia would feel crampy for a few days, but should recover fully. Olivia just nodded and closed her eyes again. We took Olivia home that same afternoon and set her up on the couch with every blanket in the house, her laptop loaded with movies, and a whole table full of snacks. She slept most of the first day and barely ate anything. The second day she was awake more and watched 3 Disney movies in a row. By the 3rd day, she seemed different, lighter somehow, like someone had lifted something heavy off her chest. She smiled more, and even made jokes about how Dad kept asking if she needed anything every 5 minutes. Nicholas came to the house for a session with Olivia, and then talked to Mom and Dad in the kitchen. I heard him say Olivia was showing really good strength, but we should expect some hard days mixed in with the good ones. He said healing doesn't go in a straight line, and we all needed to be patient with the process. 2 weeks after Olivia's procedure, the school district got hit with a huge lawsuit from multiple families. Cole Byers, the district's lawyer, tried to get everyone to agree to settlements where they would pay money, but keep everything quiet. The families said no way. They wanted everyone to know what happened and who let it happen. Dad joined this group of parents who were demanding that Principal Franklin and the other administrators get fired. They held a press conference outside the district office, and the local news came with cameras. I watched it on TV that night and saw Dad standing at the microphone looking madder than I'd ever seen him. He said the district had 23 separate warnings about the breakfast program over 2 years and did nothing. His voice shook when he talked about how his daughter was hurt because adults wouldn't listen to a kid's complaints. The news showed it on the evening broadcast, and suddenly everyone in town knew what happened at our school. Going back to the school for the first time was super weird because everybody knew about Olivia. Some kids just stared at me in the hallways like I was some kind of celebrity, but not the good kind. Other kids completely avoided me like what happened to my sister was catching or something. A few kids came up and said they were sorry about what happened, which was nice, but also made me feel strange because what do you even say back to that? My teacher pulled me aside before class and told me I could leave anytime I needed to and go to the counselor's office. She said there was someone I could talk to whenever I wanted. I appreciated it, but mostly I just wanted everything to feel normal again. I wanted to do math problems and play basketball at recess and not have everyone looking at me like I was broken. But nothing felt normal anymore, and I was starting to think maybe it never would again. Olivia wasn't ready to go back to regular school yet, so the district set up home tutoring for her. Her tutor was this older lady who came 3 times a week and was really patient when Olivia struggled with stuff. Olivia actually seemed to like the one-on-one attention that was about learning instead of being hurt. She told me one day that maybe she would go back to regular school eventually, but right now this felt safer. I got that because safe seemed really important these days. Everything felt dangerous now, like the world was full of people who could hurt you and nobody would stop them. Olivia's tutor brought her books about different subjects and let her pick what she wanted to study each day. Olivia started getting into science stuff about animals and space, subjects that had nothing to do with what happened to her. The preliminary hearing for Mr. Kumar happened on a Tuesday, and Mom and Dad went to the courthouse to support the prosecution. They came home that afternoon looking tired and angry. Dad said Kumar just sat there the whole time looking bored, like this was all some annoying inconvenience for him, instead of him ruining kids' lives. Mom said he never looked at any of the families, just stared straight ahead with this blank expression. Detective Rossi told my parents after that this was typical for predators. He said they genuinely believe they didn't do anything wrong, and that everyone else is overreacting. That made me hate Kumar even more than I already did. How could someone hurt kids and think it was fine? How could he sit there and not even feel bad about it? 4 months after everything started, Fletcher Burks finished the federal investigation and put out this huge report about what went wrong. The report said the school district ignored at least 23 separate warnings or concerns about Kumar's program over 2 years. It listed every single time someone raised a red flag and got shut down or told they were overreacting. Principal Franklin got placed on administrative leave, which basically meant she got to stay home with pay while they decided what to do with her. 2 school board members quit before they could get fired. The report said several administrators should face criminal charges for failure to report suspected abuse. Fletcher sent a copy to our family, and Dad read the whole thing in one night, getting madder with every page. He kept saying how all these adults knew something was wrong and did nothing, how they cared more about protecting the district's reputation than protecting kids. Our family started going to therapy together once a week, with this counselor who works with families dealing with trauma. The sessions were really hard because we had to talk about how we all messed up and failed Olivia in different ways. Mom cried through most of the sessions, saying she should have listened to me when I kept complaining. Dad got angry and punched the couch cushion once, yelling about how he should have protected his daughter better. I just sat there feeling bad about being jealous of breakfast, while my sister was being hurt. But slowly, like over weeks, we started talking to each other better. We started actually hearing what each person was saying instead of just getting defensive or upset. The therapist said, healing isn't a straight line, and some days would be harder than others. She said we were all doing the work though, which was what mattered. Olivia had a really bad day when we were at the grocery store, and she saw a yellow van like the ones that used to pick her up for the breakfast program. It wasn't even the same van, just the same color, but Olivia completely freaked out. She started breathing really fast and crying and couldn't catch her breath. Mom grabbed her and held her right there in the parking lot while I ran to get water from the car. Olivia was shaking so hard and kept saying she couldn't breathe. It took like 10 minutes for her to calm down enough to get in the car. Nicholas explained later that triggers like this would happen sometimes. He said seeing or smelling or hearing something that reminded her of the trauma could cause panic attacks. Olivia started carrying around this stress ball everywhere, and Nicholas taught her breathing exercises to use when she felt scared. She practiced them every day, breathing in for 4 counts and out for 4 counts, trying to train her body to calm down when her brain got scared. 3 months passed, and Olivia walked into Nicholas's office carrying a notebook. She sat down in the chair across from him and opened it to a blank page. Nicholas slid a pen across the desk, and Olivia picked it up, but just stared at the paper. She told him she wanted to write something for the judge, something about what happened to her. Nicholas nodded and asked her what she wanted to say. Olivia started writing but then crossed it out hard enough that the pen tore through the paper. She tried again, writing a few sentences, then stopping. Rachel came to the next session and sat beside Olivia while she worked on it. Rachel explained that the impact statement was Olivia's chance to tell the court how this affected her life. She said, "Judges listen to victims, and their words matter in deciding punishment." Olivia kept writing and crossing out and rewriting over the next few weeks. Sometimes she'd get through a whole paragraph before crumpling the page. Other times she'd write 1 sentence and sit there crying. Nicholas helped her find words for things she couldn't quite explain. By the end of the month, Olivia had 3 pages written in her careful handwriting. She read it out loud to Nicholas and Rachel, and her voice only shook a little bit. Rachel told her she was brave and strong for doing this. Olivia folded the pages and put them in her backpack. She said she felt more in control now that she had her own words ready. Meanwhile, Dad started going to parent coalition meetings every week at the community center. The group included families from all the victims, and they were pushing hard for people to get fired. They collected signatures and sent letters and showed up at the school board meetings. Finally, the school board called a special meeting, and Dad came home that night looking satisfied for the first time in months. He told us that Principal Franklin was officially fired, not just on leave anymore, actually fired. The counselor who kept dismissing my complaints got fired too. The school board stood up in front of everyone and apologized for failing to protect students. They announced new rules about reporting suspected abuse and said every staff member had to take training. They were hiring an outside company to watch over any special programs. Dad sat at the kitchen table reading the new policy document, and he kept shaking his head. Mom said it felt like too little too late, but at least future kids might be safer. I agreed, but I also felt angry that it took my sister getting hurt for anyone to care. A week later, Olivia came downstairs looking sad and told us that Destiny's family was moving away. Destiny's mom had called to say they needed a fresh start somewhere without constant reminders. Olivia understood, but she was losing her best friend, who actually got what she went through. They promised to video call and text every day. The moving truck showed up on Saturday morning, and Olivia stood in Destiny's driveway watching the workers load boxes. Destiny came out, and they hugged for a long time, both of them crying. Destiny's mom hugged Olivia too, and told her to stay strong. Then they drove away, and Olivia walked home slowly, dragging her feet. That night, I heard crying from her room, and I knocked on the door. Olivia was curled up on her bed holding the stuffed bear Destiny had given her. I sat down on the edge of her bed and didn't say anything, just stayed there. She cried for like 20 minutes while I sat there feeling useless. Eventually she stopped and wiped her face and thanked me for sitting with her. I realized sometimes being there was all you could do. The next month, Detective Rossi called to say the trial date was officially set for 6 months from now. A few days later, this woman named Lisa Kirk came to our house. She was the prosecutor handling the case, and she had sharp eyes and a briefcase full of papers. She sat down with our family in the living room and explained how the trial would work. She told Olivia that they had so much evidence against him that Olivia didn't have to testify if she didn't want to. But if Olivia wanted to speak, Lisa would help prepare her and support her through it. Olivia twisted her hands together and asked what testifying meant. Lisa explained she'd have to answer questions in court with him sitting there. Olivia's face went pale, and she said she wasn't sure if she was brave enough for that. Lisa said that was completely okay, and Olivia should think about it. She also said Olivia could read her impact statement at sentencing, even if she didn't testify at trial. Olivia nodded and seemed relieved to have options. After Lisa left, Olivia went upstairs, and I heard her talking to Nicholas on the phone for over an hour. I started having really bad trouble sleeping around this time. I'd lie awake thinking about all the times I complained about breakfast while Olivia was being hurt. At the school I couldn't focus, and my grades dropped. My teacher called Mom and suggested I talk to someone, so I ended up in Nicholas's office for my own session. I sat in the same chair Olivia always sat in and told him about the nightmares. In them, I was yelling at Olivia about the breakfast program while Mr. Kumar stood behind her smiling. Nicholas listened, and then explained that my guilt made sense, but wasn't actually helpful. He said I was a kid who did speak up, and adults failed to listen to me. That wasn't my fault. He taught me this breathing thing where you breathe in for 4 counts and out for 4 counts. He also gave me strategies for when the bad thoughts came, like writing them down or doing something physical. It helped a little bit, but I still woke up some nights thinking about all those breakfasts I was jealous of. 4 months after the arrest, Olivia decided she was ready to try going back to regular school. She was super nervous the morning of her first day back. She changed her outfit 3 times and barely ate breakfast. I walked with her to her new classroom because she'd been moved to a different teacher. Her new teacher was waiting at the door and smiled at Olivia warmly. She'd been told about the situation and had set up a quiet corner in the classroom where Olivia could go if she got upset. Olivia made it through 3 hours before the school called Mom to pick her up. But when she got home, Olivia seemed proud of herself. She said she'd actually learned stuff and talked to 2 other kids. The next week, she stayed 4 hours. The week after that, almost the whole day. She was slowly rebuilding her normal life, and her confidence grew with each week. Around the same time, our lawyer called about the civil lawsuit against the school district. He said they wanted to do mediation instead of going to trial. Our family and 4 other families met at this office downtown with lawyers and district representatives. They offered settlements that included money for what happened, plus they'd pay for therapy for the rest of our lives, and they agreed to make permanent policy changes. Dad wanted to reject it and go to trial because he wanted public accountability. But our lawyer explained that trials take years, and settlements mean we get help now with guaranteed results. We talked about it as a family that night. Mom said the money felt wrong, like blood money, but we needed help paying for all the therapy and medical stuff. Olivia said she just wanted it to be over, so we accepted the settlement terms, even though it felt like we were letting them off easy. The money couldn't make anything right anyway. The next weekend, Olivia asked if she could go to the park where kids played pickup soccer games. Mom drove us there, and Olivia joined a game with kids from the neighborhood. I sat on the grass watching her run down the field. She got the ball and dribbled past 2 defenders and kicked it hard into the goal. Her teammates high-fived her and she was laughing, actually laughing. I felt tears in my eyes watching her look so normal and happy. She played for an hour and came back sweating and smiling. Nicholas said later that these moments of joy were super important for her healing. They proved that trauma didn't have to control her whole life. Olivia started going to the park every weekend and slowly got back into shape. Finally, 6 months after the arrest, the trial started. It lasted 2 full weeks, and Mom and Dad went to the courthouse every single day. Olivia and I stayed home with our aunt who came to stay with us. Every evening, Mom and Dad would come home looking exhausted and tell us what happened that day. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution showed the drugs they found, the photos on his computer, the detailed records he kept of which girls got which supplements. Multiple victims testified about what he did to them. I felt sick hearing about it even secondhand. The defense lawyer tried to claim that Mr. Kumar was just helping disadvantaged girls, and things got misunderstood. That made me want to throw up, because there was no way to misunderstand drugging and raping kids. The jury went to deliberate, and it only took them 4 hours to come back. Mom called us from the courthouse crying and said he was found guilty on every single count. The sentencing hearing happened 2 weeks later. 3 victims decided to give impact statements, including Olivia. She wore her favorite purple dress and Mom did her hair. At the courthouse, Olivia held my hand super tight while we waited. When it was her turn, she walked up to the podium and she looked so tiny standing there. But her voice was clear when she started reading. She told the judge that Mr. Kumar stole her childhood and her sense of safety. She said he took months of her life that she couldn't even remember. She said she used to trust adults, and now she was scared all the time. But then she looked right at Mr. Kumar and said she wasn't going to let him steal her future too. She was going to heal and grow up and live a good life. The judge listened to all 3 girls and then announced the sentence. 45 years to life in prison. Mr. Kumar would be like 90 years old before he could even think about parole. He'd die in there. When the judge's gavel came down, I felt something release in my chest that I didn't know I'd been holding. We left the courthouse and drove straight to Olivia's favorite Italian restaurant across town. Mom made the reservation that morning because she wanted us to have something normal to look forward to after the sentencing. The restaurant had red checkered tablecloths and smelled like garlic bread. We sat in a corner booth and nobody mentioned the trial or Mr. Kumar or anything about what just happened. Dad asked Olivia about her soccer tournament next month and she got excited talking about the teams they'd be playing. I told them about my science fair project on volcanoes, and Mom made jokes about me blowing up the kitchen. Dad announced his plan to build a treehouse in the backyard, and Olivia and I immediately started arguing about who would get the top level. Mom talked about her new job at the dental office, and how her boss was actually nice for once. The waiter brought breadsticks, and Olivia and I both grabbed for the last one at the same time. We had a whole argument about who deserved it more, and finally decided to split it. Everyone was laughing at our dumb jokes, and for that one evening we felt like a normal family again. Not the family we were before everything happened, but maybe the family we could actually become someday. A week later, we had our regular family therapy session with Nicholas. He told us we'd made really good progress over the past 5 months since the arrest. The nightmares were happening less often now, maybe once a week instead of every night. Olivia's panic attacks were more manageable because she'd learned breathing exercises and had her stress ball. Mom and Dad had stopped fighting all the time like they did right after we found out. I was doing better in the school and actually turning in my homework again. Nicholas said we were learning to live with what happened, instead of letting it destroy us completely. He reminded us that healing wasn't about forgetting everything, or trying to go back to how things were before. It was about building a new normal that recognized the past, but didn't live in it every single day. Mom cried a little, but in a good way this time. Dad squeezed her hand across the couch. 2 weeks after that, a thick envelope arrived from the school district. Cole sent a letter saying they'd implemented the new safety protocols district-wide. They were calling it the Student Protection Initiative, without specifically mentioning our case or what happened. The letter said they'd trained over 500 staff members in recognizing and reporting signs of abuse. There were new rules about one-on-one time with students and mandatory background checks every year, instead of just at hiring. It didn't undo what happened to Olivia and the other girls. Nothing could ever undo that. But knowing that my annoying complaints about breakfast fairness helped create real changes gave me a weird sense of purpose. Maybe some future kid would be safer because I wouldn't shut up about pink drinks and supplements. Around that same time, Olivia told Nicholas she wanted to write a book about her experience when she got older. She said maybe she could help other kids who went through similar trauma feel less alone. Nicholas thought it was a great idea and helped her start keeping a journal as part of her therapy. She'd write down her feelings and memories, the stuff she could remember, and the stuff that was just blank spaces. Sometimes she'd read parts to me and ask if they made sense. I told her she was the bravest person I knew, and she punched my arm and said I was being cheesy, but I meant it. She was 11 years old, and already thinking about how to help other people, even though she was still healing herself. 6 months after Mr. Kumar's arrest, our family took a vacation to the beach. It was our first real trip since everything happened. We drove 4 hours to the coast and stayed in a rental house right near the water. We built sand castles that got knocked down by waves. We swam in the ocean even though the water was freezing cold. We ate so much ice cream that Mom said we'd all get sick. Olivia collected shells in a plastic bucket and insisted on keeping every single one. She buried Dad in the sand up to his neck and took 1,000,000 pictures on Mom's phone. I taught Olivia how to boogie board, and she wiped out super hard on her first try. She came up laughing and spitting salt water and immediately paddled back out to try again. At sunset, we took a family photo on the beach with the orange sky behind us. We were all actually smiling in it, and the smiles weren't fake. We were genuinely happy in that moment. Not happy like nothing bad ever happened, but happy anyway. Back home, Olivia joined a support group for young survivors of sexual abuse. She was really nervous the first time Mom drove her there. The group met at a community center on Tuesday evenings. After a few sessions, Olivia told me it helped to talk to other kids who understood what she was going through. She made friends with a girl named Sarah who'd been abused by a family member. They started having play dates like normal kids, going to the park or watching movies at each other's houses. The difference was, they understood each other's triggers and bad days in ways other friends couldn't. Sarah knew why Olivia freaked out when someone stood too close behind her. Olivia knew why Sarah couldn't handle raised voices. They were just kids trying to be kids, but with this shared understanding underneath everything. About a month later, I got invited to speak at a school board meeting. They wanted me to talk about the importance of listening to students when they report concerns. I was completely terrified standing up in front of all those adults in the boardroom, but I told them the whole story of how many times I tried to get someone to pay attention to what was happening to my sister. I told them about Principal Franklin ignoring me, and the counselor calling me jealous, and the school board email that told me to stop undermining Olivia's opportunity. I said that kids know when something is wrong, and adults need to take them seriously, even when it's hard or uncomfortable. After I finished, several board members thanked me and shook my hand. One mom came up and hugged me with tears in her eyes. She said her son had complained about a coach, and now they were actually investigating it because of the new protocols. That made me feel like maybe all the terrible stuff led to something good. 1 year after Mr. DeKumar's arrest, the local news did a follow-up story. They focused on the policy changes and how the families were recovering. Our family said no when they asked to interview us. We all sat on the couch together and watched the broadcast. The reporter said all 5 girls who got pregnant had recovered physically, and most were back in the school full-time. They showed the new training programs the district created. Fletcher got interviewed and talked about how this case changed the way his office investigates institutional abuse. It felt super weird seeing our nightmare turned into a news story with an upbeat angle about positive changes, but I guess that's how healing looks from the outside. Olivia had been back in the school full-time for 3 months by then, and she was actually doing great. She made the soccer team and scored 2 goals in her first game back. Her grades were good, mostly A's and B's. She had friends who made her laugh and invited her to birthday parties. She still saw Nicholas every other week for therapy, and probably would for a long time. But she wasn't defined by what happened to her anymore. She was just Olivia, my twin sister who hogged the bathroom and beat me at video games and rolled her eyes at my dumb jokes. She was annoying and brave and way stronger than anyone should have to be at 12 years old. But she was still just Olivia. Mom and Dad's relationship got better than it was before everything happened. The crisis forced them to actually talk to each other and support each other, instead of just existing in the same house. They started going on date nights every Friday and holding hands on the couch while watching TV. Dad built the treehouse he promised, spending 3 weekends in the backyard with his tools. Now Olivia and I hung out up there sometimes, talking about school and friends and stupid stuff that didn't matter. Our family had broken wide open when we found out what Mr. Kumar did, but we put ourselves back together with more honesty and actual love than we had before. We weren't pretending everything was perfect. We were just trying to be real with each other, and that made us stronger. I still wake up some nights thinking about all the times I complained about breakfast while my sister was drugged and raped. Nicholas helped me work through it during our sessions together, just him and me talking in his office with the soft chairs and the window that looks out at the parking lot. He explained that I did exactly what I should have done by speaking up, that the failure belonged to every adult who ignored me, not to the 11-year-old kid who noticed something was wrong. I'm trying to forgive myself for not understanding the full picture, for being jealous about pancakes when Olivia needed someone to see past the food to what was really happening. Olivia tells me at least once a week that I saved her life, usually when we're doing something normal like watching TV or playing video games. She says it matter of fact, like she's commenting on the weather, and then goes back to whatever we were doing. It helps hearing it from her, even though part of me wishes I'd figured it out sooner, wishes I'd understood what I was actually seeing, instead of just being annoyed about the unfairness of the selection process. The other families from the breakfast program stay connected through a group chat and monthly dinners at different houses. Last month, it was at our place, and Mom made lasagna while the kids played in the backyard. Olivia ran around with the other girls, all of them laughing and chasing each other like regular kids instead of trauma survivors. Inside, the parents sat around our dining table talking about therapy strategies and which medications were helping with nightmares and how the legal settlements were being distributed. Dad showed them the treehouse he built, and everyone took turns climbing up to see it. There's something about being with people who actually understand what we went through that makes it easier to breathe. Nobody has to explain why certain things are hard, or why we're all still in therapy, or why our kids sometimes have bad days out of nowhere. We're all healing at different speeds, some families further along than others, but we're not alone in figuring out how to put our lives back together. Olivia spent 3 hours last week writing a letter to Destiny, sitting at the kitchen table with her favorite purple pen and notebook paper covered in doodles. She told Destiny about making the soccer team, and about Sarah from the support group who's become her best friend, and about the treehouse Dad built. Destiny wrote back 2 days later with 6 pages about her new school in Portland, and her therapy sessions with a counselor who specializes in art therapy, and how she's learning to play guitar. Her mom sent pictures of Destiny holding a blue acoustic guitar and smiling, actually smiling, not the fake smile from before, but a real one that reaches her eyes. They're planning for Destiny to visit over summer break, a whole week where she'll stay in our guest room, and Olivia can show her around town and introduce her to Sarah. Olivia keeps reading the letter over and over, keeping it in her nightstand drawer where she can pull it out whenever she needs to. These friendships that started in the worst possible way are turning into real connections based on who they are now, not just what they survived together. Olivia talks about Destiny like she's a regular friend, sharing inside jokes and making plans for summer, and I can see how much it means to her to have someone who gets it without having to explain. One Tuesday afternoon, we're both sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, me working on a math worksheet, and Olivia writing an essay about her favorite book. The house is quiet, except for the sound of our pencils and the dishwasher running in the kitchen. Olivia suddenly looks up from her paper and stares at me for a second before speaking. She thanks me for being annoying about the breakfast thing, her voice soft but steady. I put down my pencil and tell her I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what was really happening. She shakes her head hard and says, I was the only one who noticed something was wrong, that I kept pushing even when everyone told me to stop being jealous and leave it alone. She says that matters more than anything else, that I didn't give up even when I was being a brat about it. We both stand up at the same time and hug across the corner of the table, her arms tight around my shoulders. I realize in that moment that we're going to be okay, not perfect or unmarked by what happened, but okay in a real way. That means we can actually live our lives instead of just surviving them. Our family therapist calls us into her office for what she says is an important session. Mom, Dad, Olivia, and I all squeeze onto the 2 couches in her room that smells like lavender and has paintings of beaches on the walls. She tells us we've graduated from weekly sessions to monthly check-ins, that we've built healthy ways of talking to each other and dealing with hard stuff. She says we'll always carry what happened, but we're not letting it destroy us or define everything about our family. Mom starts crying, but they're happy tears this time, not the scared or guilty tears from before. Dad pulls all of us into a group hug that's awkward and too tight, but feels good anyway. Olivia makes a joke about finally getting rid of the therapist, and we all laugh, even the therapist. She reminds us that we can always come back if we need to, that healing isn't a straight line, and sometimes people need more help later. But right now, we're doing good, actually good, and that feels like something worth celebrating. The school district settles with the last few families and sets up a victim compensation fund that will pay for therapy and medical care for as long as any of the girls need it. They dedicate a memorial garden at the elementary school with benches and flowers and a big stone plaque that reads, Listen, Believe, Protect, in letters you can see from the parking lot. It's not enough to make up for what happened, not even close, but it's something solid and permanent that says this mattered. Olivia and I go to the dedication ceremony on a Saturday morning when the sun is bright and warm. We plant a cherry blossom tree together in the corner of the garden, both of us taking turns with the shovel while Mom takes pictures. The principal, a new one who actually seems to care, explains that the tree will bloom every spring as a reminder that beautiful things can grow even after terrible winters. Olivia touches the thin trunk gently before we leave, like she's making a promise to come back and see it bloom. 14 months after the arrest, Olivia has a completely normal day. She goes to the school and doesn't have a single panic attack or flashback. She goes to soccer practice and scores a goal during the scrimmage. She comes home and does her homework at the kitchen table without any tears or triggers. We eat dinner as a family, and nobody brings up the case or therapy or anything heavy. She plays video games with me for an hour and beats me at racing games 3 times in a row. She goes to bed at her normal time and falls asleep without any nightmares. Just a regular Tuesday in the life of a 12-year-old kid doing 12-year-old kid things. That night, I hear her on the phone with Sarah, both of them laughing about some boy at the school who tried to impress Sarah by doing a backflip and fell on his face. Their giggles carry through the wall between our rooms, and I realize this is what victory actually looks like. Not the dramatic courtroom moments or the news coverage or the settlements. Victory is my sister being a normal kid with normal problems and normal joy, laughing about stupid stuff that doesn't matter, living her life instead of just recovering from what was done to her. Our family is planning a camping trip for next month at the state park 2 hours away, where we used to go before everything happened. Olivia is excited about learning to fish and sleeping under the stars in the tent Dad bought last week. I'm looking forward to hiking the trails and making s'mores over the campfire and not thinking about any of the heavy stuff for a few days. Mom and Dad are just happy to see us being kids again, making plans and getting excited about normal family stuff. We've learned that healing isn't about erasing what happened or pretending we're the same people we were before Mr. Akumar destroyed our sense of safety. It's about building a new life that honors our pain, but doesn't live in it, that remembers what we survived, but doesn't let it stop us from moving forward. We're not just surviving anymore, not just getting through each day. We're actually living, making plans and laughing and doing regular family things. Life is genuinely good now in a way that feels earned and real. We're all moving forward together, stronger than we ever were before, and that feels like the best possible outcome after everything we went through. So yeah, that's basically it. Nothing fancy, just another weird moment worth sharing. Thanks for hanging out. It always feels easy talking here.